just the same thing I said about the Boko Haram thing in Nigeria here. It's not about the forces. It's not about the number of airplanes you send to Maduguri or anything. It's about gathering intelligence. And when you gather intelligence, then I tell you, you'll be able to get at terrorists.
Now, what would be definitely a big way to really sort out this insurgency against the government? I mean, these insurgents, yes, you've already talked about intelligence gathering, but, you know, going forward, what other plans do you think, you know, the government or perhaps the African Union and other international organizations can do to really salvage the situation? Because it does appear it's getting worse.
Yeah. It's not even about negotiating with the militants now. You don't even need to negotiate with them. The government should stand, and they should stand for what is right. The government should do what is right. The government should be able to win the heart of its citizens. Because I'm very sure most of these guys are not mercenaries. Most of them are Somalians who are not happy with the government in power now, who wants to also establish their own kind of government. And so the government should be able to carry its citizenry along, win their confidence. And I tell you, the combination of the forces and the citizens will be able to win this battle. And I think that should be the best way to go now. It's not about fighting, you know, shooting guns, you know, all those gunboats. No. It's about winning the confidence of the people. Because the militants come from somewhere. Like I said earlier, they come from somewhere. And the citizens, they see them. Okay? It's just about whistle blowing. You can even establish what is called whistle blowing. You blow the whistle, tell the government, oh, they are there. They are here. And if the government says, okay, if you can blow a whistle that the militants are gathering somewhere, will give you so dollars or so pounds sterling, I think people will go a long way to start helping the government out.
All right, so much. Thank you so much, Declan Hekari, for that you know, analysis on the situation in Somalia. Thank you so much for your thoughts on the program.
You're welcome.
Let's move on now. 14 Boko Haram fighters have been killed during a shootout with the military as they attempted to overrun a military base in Borno State. According to the AFP, the militant group stormed the army base in 8 pickup trucks on Wednesday, but then the troops were able to repel the attack with the help of reinforcements. Eyewitnesses told AFP that the gunmen came from the direction of Buniyadi in Yobe State, and hundreds of motorists caught up in the shooting had to detour to the nearby village of Jakana until the shooting stopped. Buniyadi is linked to the Sambisa forest, which is believed to be the hideout of Boko Haram's leader, Abubakar Shekau. We're in Angola now, where President João Lourenço has continued or has vowed to continue to fighting corruption, saying his campaign shouldn't be seen as the persecution of wealthy families. At the seminar on crime, Mr. Lourenço explained that Angolans who had illegally stashed money abroad should bring it back and invest it in the country, or else the government will take steps to recover the cash. His comments come after his predecessor, José Eduardo dos Santos, who is still the head of the ruling MPLA party, demanded that changes were necessary, but opined that they should not be radical. Mr. Lourenço has made several cabinet changes in government since he took office, sacking Mr. dos Santos' daughter Isabel as the chair of the state oil company Sonangol. He also sacked the police and intelligence chiefs, despite Parliament passing a law in the dying days of Mr. dos Santos' rule that they would remain in their post for about 8 years. Now, the fraud trial of the veteran mayor of Senegal's capital, Dakar, Khalifa Sall, due to open later today, has been postponed to January the 3rd. Sall has been charged with embezzling state funds, but already has denied the charges. Khalifa Sall had been seen as a likely presidential contender for the year 2019. He was indicted in March for alleged fraud and embezzlement of public money. He faces up to 10 years in prison if convicted. However, Mr. Sall's supporters say the allegations of fraud are a plot to undermine his political ambitions. Let's move to South Africa, where President Jacob Zuma has now filed an appeal against a court ruling that his appointment of a state prosecutor to decide whether to reinstate corruption charges against him wasn't valid. According to local media, the High Court ruled last week that President Zuma's appointment of head prosecutor Sean Abrahams be set aside immediately. and the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa should appoint a new public prosecutor within 60 days. The ruling was among a series of judicial blows to his administration, which has already been hit by a series of scandals. President Zuma filed papers saying that people exercise presidential powers at the same time, according to the television station Enka. In October, the Supreme Court of Appeal upheld an earlier decision by a lower court that the nearly 800 corruption charges filed against President Zuma before he became president be reinstated. However, the National Prosecuting Authority, NPA, says it will appeal the ruling. Zimbabwe's new president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, has called for the removal of unconditional lifting of political and economic sanctions by the West on his government. He made this plea during a speech to the ruling party ZANU-PF officials in downtown Harare, saying elections are in 2018 and are nearer than expected. He added that the international community will be closely watching the next elections, promising that it will be free and fair. Mnangagwa, 75-year-old, became a leader of the Southern African nation last month after the military and the ruling ZANU-PF turned against Robert Mugabe, who had ruled the country for 37 years and was seen grooming his wife, Grace, to succeed him. While the European Union removed sanctions on ZANU-PF officials, members of the military and some government-owned firms in 2014, the United States have kept travel and economic embargo on several ruling party elites. A former Zimbabwe Finance Minister, Ignatius Chombo, is facing new corruption charges today in the clearest example yet of a crackdown on graft by President Emmerson Mnangagwa since he took office last month. Chombo is facing separate charges of corruption, including defrauding the central bank dating back 2 decades. He was set free on a bail a week ago. He was initially detained by the military when it seized power in Operation Restore Legacy, which it said was meant to remove the criminals around Mr. Robert Mugabe. The graft watchdog accused Chombo of criminal abuse of office and said he illegally resettled people affected by a government cleanup operation on privately owned land in Harare, and then demanded a bribe from the owner to remove the people, his lawyer Lovemore Maduku explained on Thursday. Several members of the G40, a group allied to Mr. Robert Mugabe and his wife Grace, were detained and expelled from the ruling party alongside Chombo. Still to come on the program, the best television station in Africa, Channels Television, wins the NMMA Awards for a record 12th time.